But as the son gets older, so the bands get loosed, the son becomes a man, and then there's a friendship that builds up between a father and a son. And that's very valuable in a young man finding his way in life and making decisions.
Dad, welcome onto YouTube. Nice to have you here. Thanks for having a conversation with me.
Great. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, great. So, we've decided actually to have a series of conversations as a father and son. We might even get my son and have a three-generational conversation at some point. Noah's at least open to that as an 18-year-old boy with some good and big thoughts about life. But we're starting off with this core principle that we have on Manifesto of friendship. We've realized that this is one of the biggest benefits that guys realize and experience is that when they come onto a core team, they start working with other guys on reaching their goals and being held accountable and being honest and straight with each other in a supportive way, that they actually start learning the skills of building friendships in the relationships that they're at.
Yeah.
And you and me were just talking about how actually the father-son relationship is important for how a man learns to create friendships in his life. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, often what happens with young men is that they tend to make friendships of men of their own age and so on. And that sometimes leads to a bit of kicking against authority. So they tend to rebel a little bit. And so they have this idea that, oh, the old man doesn't know what he's talking about and putting him down and so sort of thing. And then as they begin to experience life, they find that they actually need something of an older man. They need someone who's had some experience. They need somebody to have a little bit of input. And then often there's a bit of a shift and a change. And if a father and a son have a good relationship and the communication between them is open, then that opens the door for a father-son friendship. Because, it's not easy for a father and a son when the son is still a child to have a friendship relationship. But as the son gets older, so how can I put it? The bands get loosed, the son becomes a man, and then there's a friendship that builds up between a father and a son. And that's very valuable in a young man finding his way in life and making decisions and going forward.
Mhm. Absolutely. So, Dad, right around when Corona started, it was, I think, 2019. Then I asked you, I think I had been through that kind of rebellious phase and then had
Yes.
realized the need for stopping to kind of be butting my head against authority. And saw that there was a lot of value, especially coming from long walks with you in the countryside and the mountains and all kinds of things. But I then asked you, I said, Dad, I'm starting this new project. It's going to be called Maniphesto Core. It's going to be online groups, and I want you to join it. So I'm just curious. I don't think I've ever asked you before. What did you think? What was your kind of initial feeling when I asked you to come into Core and join a team?
Well, as you say, we didn't discuss it at the time, but it actually was quite a conflict for me because my whole mission in life has been really to have men see that they actually need help. And for me, that was they need the help of God, because what I've found and I've seen is that men who can be successful and fix themselves and get established, they tend to then get very proud. And
Mhm.
that's something that I'm militating against and
Mhm.
really wanting men to be humble and men needing to recognize that they have a need and that they need help, and particularly that they need the help of God.
Mhm.
And that's often not the case. And so here I was being faced with now a mission of making a man the best man he can be. And that's kind of the thought in Manifesto. And for me, that was something very deeply spiritual rather than something philosophical or something mental, or something of me being a strong, capable man. So I was quite conflicted about the thought.
Mhm.
But as I chatted with Mom, so the thoughts came, well, you don't have to be the preacher man, but maybe you can just let people see that there's something between you and your son Paul, that there's something that you hold to that is valuable and that is actually beneficial, and that you can begin to impart, not so much by talk, but by being. And that was perhaps then the thing that swayed it for me.
Mhm.
But I really went through quite a thought process and a sort of a inner discussion about this before I said, yeah, okay, I'll be part of it.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know that, and certainly it's been one of the difficulties of Maniphesto of like how to balance this thing of like, defaulting to doing things in our own strength, and obviously the failure of that comes. But that's probably a
Well,
conversation that we can have at a future time. Let's earmark that
yeah.
one. Um, was there anything that surprised you when you came into Maniphesto, into Core?
Well, yes. The thing that really surprised me was the acceptance. Um, you know, most of the guys that were on call were European men. They had at that time, a value system or a culture system or an understanding that was very different to mine as a man growing up here in the wilds of Africa, if you like, and
Mhm.
living on the southern tip of this tiny country that is totally insignificant in the world, and they were living in Europe where everything's happening in Europe. And I came in and I was an older man. Most of them were young men at the time. And I was just so accepted. It really did surprise me. But
Mhm.
that's the thing about Maniphesto is this understanding and acceptance of men as they are, but then helping one another to become better.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly we found at least like you can't push anybody to go in any direction that you think they should come,
Yep.
but it is really from seeing each other's being over time that things happen.
Yeah. So one of the things we have in our particular group sessions, our meetings, is that once a month we have a celebration call, we call it.
Mhm.
And men come and celebrate what they've been successful in, or they celebrate someone else who's been successful,
Mhm.
or reached something, or went through something and came out of it on the other side.
Mhm.
And that's been a tremendous inspiration for the other men in the group.
Mhm.
So just the sharing of our goals and then the sharing of those successes has inspired us.
Yeah. Okay, good. So have you had any significant successes that you've been able to celebrate, Dad? And has something shifted in your kind of perspective through the time that you've been on Core, other than maybe realizing that a man up in his 70s in the tip of Africa can have something to contribute to these sophisticated European men? I don't know if that's really surprised you. I don't really buy that, but anyway.
No, yeah, the acceptance was the thing that surprised me. But
Yeah.
then what really came through was this understanding of hearing men talk from completely different perspectives and backgrounds and understandings. And that broadened my understanding and my appreciation.
Mhm.
And things that I wouldn't have even thought about in the past now became part of what my thinking influenced my thinking of
Mhm.
men wanting to be the best they can and facing very different circumstances. In my culture is perhaps very much a manly kind of a culture, so that's very accepted. Whereas amongst the European guys, this manly culture is something that's generally opposed. And
Mhm.
so now finding this balance in that was something that I really gained out of this whole thing. And having perspectives from men very different to mine, which made me then examine my own and see, where am I on this and where do I stand?
Mhm. So you'd say that actually you've gained a greater depth and nuance in your perspective on even like masculinity and being a man through talking to us feminized Europeans.
I wouldn't put it like that. But yeah,
No.
just speaking to men who come from very different
Yeah.
backgrounds and who've had very different battles in life and found many of their battles inspiring for me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, one of the things that I think is absolutely core for all men that I speak to, and I just get reminded this again and again and again, is that what's underlying a lot of guys' troubles in life is that they're seeking for how can they contribute. They're looking to be able to contribute. I really think this is a driving force in men. We want to create value for other people. So how do you feel that you're able to contribute to on Maniphesto? Has that been a special place where you've been able to find more a contributive role in what you can do?
I wouldn't say more so, but another opportunity, another avenue to be able to do that.
Mhm.
One of the things about older men, especially if they've been in a very much of a work environment, when they then retire, they suddenly feel very redundant and useless. And
Mhm.
that's something that I've had to also work with myself, and found that being in core and being part of a smaller core group, particularly,
Mhm.
has been tremendous in the men appreciating and wanting to communicate with me. And I found that an incredible boost, if you like. So, I feel that it's given me a feeling of worth amongst these young guys, where I'm able to, maybe not preach at them in that sense, but be able to just share some experience of life. And yeah, this was my experience. That's how that happened, and this is how this situation changed in my life. And just to be able to impart that is something that's been very encouraging and beneficial. And can I use the word as a blessing to me?
Mm-hmm. Great. So you also came to our big in-person gathering. I think we had like about 100 guys or something like that, the European men's gathering. Was that in 21 or 22, something like that? I think you came up and joined in there as a group leader and the storyteller of the elder storyteller, told the story of Iron John to these 100 guys from 30 different countries. Can you tell a little bit about the story there? What were the highlights? What was interesting to share with people listening?
Well, the first thing was, wow, so many men gathered together. It was so impressive that I thought, this is great. Um, and then I loved the storytelling. I really enjoyed that part of it.
Mhm,
But then I really felt out of my depth in being a group leader.
mhm,
Um, my environment, if you like, that I'm used to is for me to draw something out of the men and to let them kind of steer where things are going, and I'll just kind of hold that. Whereas
mhm,
I feel that in my group, I should have been far more, can I use the word assertive? Should have been far
mhm,
more directional in setting the tone for the group. Whereas in my background and understanding, I would let the group set the tone.
mhm,
And that to me was a bit of a difficult one. And I felt I didn't handle that very well, maybe just because I wasn't quite prepared for what was coming.
mhm,
But the whole experience was a tremendous experience of men working together, wanting to build, wanting to associate with one another. The team building I thought was tremendous. Um, I was involved in getting the what do you call those things, the statue things organized. So I wasn't part of the big fight build up. So,
You had some
but
tribal warfare going on.
yeah, but when it came to the conclusion, I saw how the men were supporting each other in their particular teams. Now they were now opposing, but they were these two teams, and they were really supporting each other. And I'll never forget our group team. The last event, if you like, was a wrestling match,
Mhm,
and our guy was really totally overshadowed by the opposite team. And it was a young man who was so supported and can I pull it beefed up by his team that he just would not give up. And he to me he won my heart on that occasion, that he
mhm.
was just steadfastly would not give up in that fight. And I was just I took that home with me as something that was really great for the whole of the camp, for the whole of the event. It
Yeah.
was this principle of get stuck in, get a support group of men, and then you can literally face whatever comes.
Yeah, I don't think I'm embarrassing Nico on core today, as I think that's the guy you're talking about. It was a really inspiring. Am I right? It was Nico in his wrestle that
As Nico,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, just incredibly inspiring. Saw real power
So
in a young man who I'd never seen up until that point. Really, I was like, wow, I saw something powerful from him. That was a great experience.
yeah, so right now I'm buddying up with Nico. So kudos to
Okay.
you, Nico.
Hey, Nico. Hope you're watching and enjoying. Okay. So, Dad, how has the relationship with the men in in your team changed and evolved over time? Has there been other? That's one moment that it sounds like really stuck out for you as well. But has there been other specific things that have happened over the years now that you've been engaged with and talking to these guys?
Well, so the big thing for me that really hit me was the acceptance of all the men.
Mhm,
And then amongst us all, that acceptance, we all accepted each other, and we saw things through. For our little initiation ritual, which I won't talk about because it's supposed to be a secret, but how the men just gave themselves to it, applied themselves, went the extra mile to get the thing done and to then conclude it. So to me, that again stirred up a bit of determination. Because I suppose I was getting on in life a little bit. I was a bit settled, become a little plump and that sort of thing. And this really, again, stirred me up. Mm-hmm. Then the other thing that happened was at the boot camp. I'm the oldest man in the group, and not probably the fittest, although I'm fairly okay. I'm just the oldest man in the group.
You got a lot of push-ups since you've been on Core, right, Dad? We did this Green
Yeah,
Sally Up challenge a while, and I mean, like, I think my dad's beating me at push-ups these days. Actually, am I right?
No, I don't think so, but maybe.
So.
Yeah, and what the guys really shared with me at the camp was that I was actually stubborn, in that I would battle through and not say anything. And they said to me, if you're battling, we're here. We're all willing to help and support. Just tell us. And that was a tremendous thing for me, because I always thought, no, I've got to do it. I've got to make sure I stand my ground and I manage my bit. And they were saying, you are managing your bit. And if there's something extra that you can't manage, say so. So it came to a point where I handed over my backpack to a younger man. And
after a lot of resistance.
Yeah, and that's what the guy said to me. We don't want to push you because we want you to, be brave and do what you can, but be wise. And when the point comes where you can't do it, hand it over. And that was a real, opening of my eyes, if you like, to seeing, yeah, okay, let me realize, do the best I can, but then say, okay, now help. And they were so willing to help.
Okay, well, that's great to hear that they've got that out of it so far. So Dad, what does Mom think about you talking to all these guys all over the world, sprinkled in different continents? What's her opinion? I never asked you that either before.
I think it's a little mixed because obviously it takes time. And that takes time away from being with her. But on the other hand, she's seeing the benefit, and she's seen what that's brought even in my own life. And the little bit of sloppiness that I was getting into, this brought a greater discipline. And she's very blessed and encouraged by that. And then to see that, how can I put it? I suppose any wife is proud of her husband. And so she's proud of the fact that I'm appreciated and that the men want me to be a part of their group. So
yeah.
She
you have young guys ringing you up at in the morning. And, oh, I'm having this problem with my girlfriend. I don't know how to handle it. And so you're a bit more of that rock of support for a broader group of guys, right? So she appreciates that, and she has the ability to share, I guess, as well.
Yes, and actually promotes it and says, "That's great, hubby. You go for it. Okay, you're going to be for an hour or an hour and a half today." Well, an hour today. Oh, great. Okay, hour and a half tomorrow. Oh, well, okay. So. And be there with it and be with the guys. And so she's been very supportive in the whole thing. And I would say the other day she actually looked at my physique and she said, well, that's because you're in Maniphesto. Because the Maniphesto guys have challenged us. Come on, do that, Sally up.
Yeah, well, if I'm still doing as well as you are when I'm 75, Dad, then I'll be pretty satisfied. I think Laura Senior will be happy as well. So,
very good.
Good. Okay, Dad. So to bring it to a close, anything that you want to finish up with, close up with, like what you get out of being in Core today, or what you think is the way forward, and what do you think? Any final thoughts to add in that we haven't covered yet?
So what I get out is this broader kind of idea of father-sons. So, I have a very special relationship with you and a very special relationship with Mark because you are my very own sons. And now there's a broader relationship here. And there are men that are now older. I'm 70, and I think the next oldest man in our group is 58, I think. So between us, there's more of a kind of a equality relationship. But then with the younger men, there's this father-son relationship. And this can be broader. I've always had that kind of broad experience in the church where I am, but now it's with everybody. It's with these different men. And, in the church, if you like, men tend to say, yes, sir, no, sir, and three bags full, sir. And here there's more of a challenge of, you think like that. Well, I think like this. And then we can discuss this and we can talk about it and we can share it. And this is, to me, one of the great things about being part of a group that covers this big spectrum. So older, younger, conservative, liberal, and we're in this together and we support each other. To me, the biggest thing that I get out of being in a core group is support. And the men are very different to what I am, and yet they support me. And that's what I really enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah, you kind of see the best in what guys have and what they give, and you really try and grow that, I guess. And
Yeah.
Dad, I got to say, for me, like the thing that you really give is your ability to listen, also to people who have very different ideas to you. I remember one of our very first walks up in the mountains, some probably more than 10 years ago, where I was really struggling with one of your core beliefs, actually. I won't go into the details of what it is, but there was like a foundational belief, and I couldn't get my mind around it. And so I went at it very aggressively and came with like my best arguments to attack it and to destroy it, basically. And you listened to me very carefully and you kind of took it in, and the things where I was right, you said like, well, that makes sense and that makes sense. And you didn't try and defend or push back or, like whatever, mount a defense. And that really, I think that was for me the beginning of my journey back to, um, you know, having a proper relationship to authority and to fatherhood, I would say. So I think that's something that I really appreciate, and it's a real gift that you bring that onto Maniphesto Core, absolutely, as well, for all the other men. Where, I think as younger men in Europe, we're struggling with this thing of like, the father and respect for where we come from, for our own roots, right? So it's greatly appreciated.
No, thank you. And yes, I do feel that I have a part to play in just listening and then being strong in being who I am, but not being argumentative about it. And I found that that's something that's beneficial. Yeah. And young men can talk and discuss and give their points of view, and they're not being overlooked. They're being heard. I think that's the thing that's more beneficial.
Well, Amen. Thank you very much, Dad. Greatly appreciate it. And looking forward to continuing the conversation in future episodes.
Well, thank you for having me. It's great to be part of the team.